welcome to another episode of Unvarnished. Hope you're all doing well out there. I'm joined by Dscoop colleague, marketing extraordinaire, graphics maestro Chris Hyde, and our special guest today, Jakob Bovin. Jakob, hello.
Hi.
Jakob is the CEO and founder of a leadership development consultancy called Leading2Results. We're really happy to have you, Jakob. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So first question, Jakob, just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So born in Sweden, moved to Switzerland at a young age, have spent quite a few years in the US, hence I've kind of neutralized that, funky European accent, which I'm quite happy about. Yet I still have a bit of a neutral English accent, I guess. I have, to make it very short, 25-year business career behind me. And after those 25 years, I decided to create my own company 3 years ago to focus on leadership development. And so in my career, to kind of summarize it for people, was essentially spent roughly a decade in the world of IT for Hewlett Packard, and then roughly a decade in the world of HP Indigo, which remains definitely a highlight in my career. Amongst other things, I had a chance to develop the photo industry, or the photo offering within the photo industry on behalf of Indigo here in Europe. So that was a very significant part. And then I've also spent time in the packaging industry at the company Bobst, who happens to be more or less a neighbor of mine here in Switzerland. And then a short stint at a company called Mark and Image. So that's kind of my career in a nutshell. Very focused on the business development side, and creating new businesses, new activities, typically in these organizations with a very strong customer focus in these different industries. And basically, so I kind of came to this point in my last corporate stint, as I like to call it, where, I had an impulse that I want to do something different for the next 25 years of my career. Hitting 50 was a key milestone. It's already a year away. And I said, what am I going to do now? And there was a couple of things that fascinated me through my career, which is people and just getting the best out of people around us, as leaders, as teams, as peers, as colleagues. And then execution, or strategy execution, as I like to call it now. So how do we actually get the results that we want? And I have this theory, which if we do things really, really well, just the basics really well, we can perform really outstanding in pretty much any condition and market. So that was kind of the two pillars of starting my new journey of this leadership development company I started 3 years ago.
That's awesome. Well, this is great because most of the people watching are leading teams currently, or are will. And in the print industry, what I've always found interesting is a lot of managers are there because that was the next logical move for them. They were really good at sales, so they're a sales manager. They're really good at customer service, so they're a customer service manager. They own the company, so they have to manage a team. Can you talk about the difference between sort of occupying that mentality and intentionally leading a team, which I feel like you're about to say is very different?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, and I think what you actually describe. So there's a statistic that came out some 10 plus years ago, saying that on average, managers across different industries and so on manage for a decade before they get any formal training. So that might have changed a bit, right? It's a bit more accessible now, etc. But by formal training, we mean with somebody who's actually going to take you through the journey, not just go and check out a video on LinkedIn. That's two different things. So actually what you're describing to me is actually a global kind of, phenomenon of most organizations, that we go from individual contributor, and we kind of say, hey, Jakob, why don't you lead this team of 3 over here? And good luck. That's pretty much what happened to me. And then you kind of have to learn that somehow. But there's nobody who's going to push you along. So what my observation has always been is we kind of take for granted that as humans, we kind of step into that management role and we can do it because it's just a human thing to do. But it's not. It's really hard. It's really hard to manage, right? And I say that a lot, that I I would say I almost regret that I did not get more management development training and so on earlier, because it would have dramatically impacted my growth career, my growth path. Sorry, not so much my career, more the growth path and effectiveness to manage people. So that was a long-winded way to kind of say that you're absolutely right, but that's just it's a general question and challenge. So what the difference is that when we do get more management development training and so on, we get to learn what are some of the absolutely fundamental pieces and skills that we need to be successful. Take a classic, lovely example of giving feedback, or whatever you want to call it. But just saying the word evokes emotions in people. They're like, oh, feedback? Let's not talk about feedback. Or things like, goal clarity, right? So I had a session today, a coaching session with a senior leader today, and I said, so how clear are the goals? How clear are you with your CEO about the goals that you have to attain in the 4 months you have to fix this part of the organization that you've been hired to do? And I said, it's actually not that clear. Well, that's pretty fundamental, So we got to get that learning accelerated, this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say a leader understands that, feels the impulse to be better at that. How do you help them crystallize what those goals are? Sort of it's generally true that people want to advance, people want to grow their teams, etc. I don't know if it's as true that they have 3 specific things they're going after, or what those crystallized goals are. So how do you approach that?
Right. So for me, there's a couple of things to consider. One is that as a leader, what you're doing is that you have to accomplish goals for a team or an organization. That's your job, right? So that is what has, and I'm actually thinking about writing an article about selfless leadership, right? Which comes to this topic, that you're actually acting in the interest of the organization or the team. That's all that matters. So for that, you need to be clear about what is, the vision, if you wish, or the greater objective you're there to achieve. Whether you're a team or a big organization, it's still a question you have to address. And then, that has to translate into a strategy that can actually allow you to accomplish that, and then getting it executed, which is helping people, get the tools to actually do the job effectively and kind of move along, right? So that's kind of one dimension. The other side of the same coin is, how do I grow, where you started earlier with your question, as a leader, how I'm effective? And I think you have to play those parts together. So it's 2 reflections. One is very business focused. The other one is very much focused on me as an individual. How can I become more effective? But they play together. And so you have to be deliberate about both dimensions. And so if you look at the sort of work I do and the sort of training and development we do, is very much about going through those steps of understanding the vision all the way down to execution. What are some of the blockers? What happens in that process? Where do we typically go wrong? From a principles perspective, it's not like, and these are principles often that have to fall in the right place and be done the right way. And then from the personal leadership development perspective, it's really more thinking about, do I understand how I am perceived as a leader? What are some of my strengths, some of my weaknesses? We're all unique as humans. We all bring different things to the table. I like to use snowflakes, living in Switzerland, every snowflake apparently is unique. Well, every human is unique. Therefore, every leader is unique. So we need to understand what makes me unique. And then we need to understand, well, what does actual good leadership looks like? What does it look like? And how do I, where are the things that I do well versus those things I really need to work on more? And that needs to be a very deliberate process, because it's hard to change, as we know. It's one thing to get things done in the job, but as people, to change, it's arguably the biggest challenge we have.
Got you. I have a question about teams, because even when a leader has that crystallized sort of sense of where they want to go, they have to lead people who are having bad days, bad moods, problems at home, disagreements,
Mm.
professional things that they would do differently. So once a leader has sort of that crystallized vision of where everyone should go, how does a leader sort of get it done in that sea of a bunch of human beings who might not necessarily feel the same way to start?
Yeah. So in other words, how do you get a team to work, regardless of circumstances, changes, and so on and so forth, right? So I think the first thing is just that we have to recognize that we are humans, so we're going to have the good days and the bad days, and a lot of the work that I do is focused on getting to know each other better. It doesn't mean we have to hug each other and be best friends, but it's understanding who's a human behind the workers and expression I like to use, right? Because in a lot of environments, we're just there working and then we're somebody else outside. What I try to say, no, we need to understand who we are. And because if we understand who we are, then that, whatever those, whatever we bring into a person, into the team is going to be apparent and clear. And it doesn't become something fuzzy or hidden, and people start understanding what's going on, right? In the people around the table. So the word I use a lot is I mean, everybody uses in leadership development is trust, right? So we have to have a very strong foundation of trust. And that's where everything starts. Without trust, we can't do anything. So, and take the example, if you show up there and you're, X, Y has happened and you're just, like that. If we have that trust level, there's going to be a flow of understanding between that something's going on here. And okay, so we can put that aside and kind of put to focus. You'll feel better. You'll be able to kind of focus on the work, etc. So that's kind of the first foundation. And then again, we come back to this idea of clear goals. We need to know where we're going together, and are we doing something together? So I deal a lot with silos, that people are sitting in their silos and actually not having to collaborate and trying to be a team. You're not a team. You're just doing stuff in silos. So also having a clear, authentic conversation about that. Do we have a common goal here? Do I actually have to be around for this conversation? I don't think so. This has nothing to do with me. I'll go off somewhere else and you let me know how it goes. Bye-bye, et cetera, et cetera. So it's almost going down some very basic things about understanding each other and working towards common goals. That's kind of the simplest way I can describe it, I would say.
One thing I was thinking when you were answering that question, and because Chris and I are on the same team, at least with Dscoop, is that a crystallized goal and this unified feeling that you're going somewhere, like the idea of finding your why, also has this sort of side benefit, doesn't it, of removing tasks,
yeah,
of deleting things, of saying we actually don't have to do that because that's not in line with what we're trying to do. There's a million things we could be doing, and that feels exhausting sometimes. And is it true that
Darren, you hit the nail on the head, right? So I didn't say it, but you read between the lines. I mean, prioritization. So this is one of my key topics. No matter how big the organization or small the organization, whatever, probably more challenging in a small organization, mind you, because we have so much on our plate in small organizations, but it's prioritization. That's what it comes down to. And we're pretty terrible at that as human beings because we do not like to say no. Prioritization means I need to say no to something. And so that's one dimension. The other dimension is we like to jump in and do things, right? Prioritization means, okay, we're going to stop here. We're going to do some planning and then we'll move into action. Action, as a former coach told me, said, it's a great anti-anxiety pill. We get into action because we feel better doing stuff as humans. And that plays pretty heavily against us. And again, now this new life since 3 years is fascinating because I see all these problems. They come back all the time. And one of them is very high on that list, which is prioritization. You nailed it, I would say. And then another one I didn't mention in that kind of team context is also that feedback, right? So when we have the trust and we can give feedback to each other and be authentic, things just, they start flowing much more easily.
Well, Chris, Jacob just told me to take the afternoon off because I had everything on my to-do list was. So I'll see you guys later. I'm going to stick to the priorities. I'll just be back tomorrow, Chris, which is a weird segue. Do you want to ask a question?
I do. What's the big reticence, like the pushback for somebody to go into to get coaching? Like what is, like, on the personal level, like, is it because they feel they don't need it and they're like, they feel like it's a soft skill that they don't need? Because I'm an expert in what I do. I should be able to do this.
Yeah, exactly. So let me maybe give a couple of different answers there. Talking about coaching, one-to-one coaching versus kind of going into a program where you kind of develop yourself, right? And the way I see it. So one-to-one coaching is, you have to believe it to see it. You have to go through the experience of getting coached by somebody who coaches you with we call professional coaching skill, because there's a deliberate methodology, and it's very different from a normal conversation, but it's so much more empowering for the person who is receiver of that coaching. So that's a bit of the dilemma, right? And the other side is that a lot of people don't, a lot of people do kind of coaching, but it's kind of all kind of stuff, right? So really powerful coaching session is incredibly valuable. And I think, it takes a bit of vulnerability in accepting that, I probably need help here, to figure this out. And it's like, but the parallel of going to the gym, right? Do you pay for a coach to help you in the gym? Well, I have a gym membership. Do I have a coach? No, because I figured I do it, enough pretty well what I'm doing, right? I could probably benefit from gym membership. I do have a coach for my career and professional activity, because, coaches have coaches. So that's kind of that one coaching dimension. Then there's the kind of going further with leadership development. And I think, there's two things. I think we get caught in our busyness, so we kind of keep on running, and we don't want to take time out to actually sit down, spend X number of hours, and say, let's reflect on what I could do differently or how I could get better here, because we're going to keep on going. And I think that's a critical point. And then there's this perception that's really, super onerous and expensive, because we got all these, business schools out there who offer things that cost, a car, more or less. And that has made a lot of people shy away from it. And then you have LinkedIn, but you have nothing in between, which is kind of what I'm trying to change as well, actually.
Interesting. The tools and methods that I've read a little bit about what you do. It looks very impressive. Can you share an example, like a specific example of a tool or a method that a leader of a print company could take and apply, realizing that they won't get the level of detail that they would if they used you for that consultation? But let's get a taste of what they would get.
Yeah, exactly. So well, to stay then with the topic of coaching, right? So one of the things that we do is we help leaders, whether they have had coaching or not, understand what are the very basic yet powerful skills that are used in a coaching conversation. And I'm not saying you become coach overnight, because I went through the journey of becoming coach after I left my 25-year career. But as I did that, I realized, holy cow, there's actually a very different dialogue happening here. If only I'd learned that 10 years earlier. And with that, I developed an approach called the power of coaching, which is basically giving those basic tools that I learned after 25 years of leadership without those tools to other leaders. And it's basically simple things. It's understanding what listening to somebody else is, but really listening, and not listening with the intent to direct them to do something, but listening to understand how they see the world, and then helping them find the path forward with their own tools without telling them what to do. And those, we do some simple exercises, and those are immensely powerful in their own right. Like I say, after a few hours on that, you don't come out as a coach, but you start seeing differently when you are listening or not listening to somebody else and some of those behavior changes. So those are instantly applicable. You kind of get out of the session, you're like, ooh, why don't I try to listen to what this person has on their mind? I come back to the snowflake. Everybody's different. So we know I like to say the only person who sees the world like you do is you. So the person comes with a problem and I can ask him an open question. So tell me more about this. And I shut up. All right. So how do you feel about it? Well, I feel that it's really, really challenging. All right. What would make it less challenging for you? Rather than saying, hey, John, well, you should do it like this. If I say, hey, John, you should do it like this, John will come back the next time and tell me, Jacob, what did you say I should do? If I say, what's a way to kind of overcome this barrier for you? I start thinking, saying, I see how to do that. Oh, I can do that. And they won't come back and ask me next time because they'll figure it out. So it's turning that classical executive conversation, which we all have in the business. It's natural in our business environment. We're there to solve problems and move. To turning on its head. And like I said, the first time I ever went into coaching, drill, which is 2.5 years ago now, I was told you're not allowed to solution solve. You're not allowed to tell them in your experience of how to do things. And you can only use open question that start with how or what. And you're supposed to shut up and listen. They probably didn't say shut up, but they probably said something along those lines. And when they told me that, I freaked out. I was like, whoa, no, you can't do that for me. But I discovered in those first 10 minutes that I could actually do it. It took a lot of self-discipline, but I could do it.
So you said how or what. Can you give an example of what not to say versus what to say in that situation?
So I come and say, so I have a problem working. Well, somebody comes and said to me,
wait, I'll do it. We'll do a role play.
Yeah, ask me. Yeah, exactly. Ask me. Yeah.
Jacob, I got a real problem with someone I work with. What should I do?
Well, listen, Darren, I think you should, stop telling me that and get on with it, right? Right. So that, that could be an answer, right? Because you've come to me with a question.
Yeah.
5 times, before, right? So then I tell you, come on, we're busy. We're on the production floor here. Let's get this stuff done. Right. Ask me the question again.
A different question?
No, the same question.
Okay. Jacob, I've got a real problem with a coworker. How do I deal with this?
All right, Darren, tell me more. What's going on?
Well, I was supposed to finish something by Friday, but I needed Debbie, there's no Debbie, to get me what she needed to finish in order for me to finish my stuff. She didn't get it done, and now here we are, and I feel like I'm being blamed because Debbie.
You feel like you're getting blamed because of Debbie. All right. So what have you done so far to try to tackle this?
Well, I went into the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes, but that didn't work.
Excellent. I wouldn't say that excellent there, right?
Yeah.
So without continuing a full-fledged coaching session here, I think the difference is that you ask questions to help the person, not spill their beans, but tell exactly what is going on and give their perspective on that.
So getting to that root, really what's happening. There's a difference, right, between what people are saying occurred or like different versions of things and like the root issue at hand and your tools and methods sort of drill down to like what that really is.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I go from a position of saying, well, you're just complaining all the time, Darren, and I'm being a bit extreme here. I'm not saying people, managers, leaders behave like this, but I'm being kind of black and white. If I say kind of make the assumption, well, you always have a problem working with Debbie, which might be the case, but we're a lot better off trying to get into the root cause of that problem than just trying to keep on going and pushing ahead, right?
There's a little bit of an interesting thing in the thread of your answers, which is it feels like leadership sometimes isn't about hurrying up, getting to that goal, getting to a finish line, having more meetings. Like the idea of a sped up list of things to do, in fact, it sounds a little bit like there's intentional slowing down,
Yeah.
listening, pausing, trying to get to root causes. Is there something there?
100%. So the whole exercise of, I mean, for me to coach you through the problem with Debbie, it's probably going to take me a 15-minute conversation rather than telling Darren, just go and do this with Debbie. That took me 12 seconds.
Yeah.
So one of the key feedbacks is that, well, hold on, I don't have time for that. And it's like, and I buy that. I've been there myself. There have been plenty of times I didn't have time for that. The question is, when do I have time, and when should I apply the time and take the time to have that conversation and starting to build that awareness. And there's a famous quote by Stephen Covey, author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which a lot of people know about, which is, with people, slow is fast and fast is slow. Right? So we need to slow down with other people to be able to have a better conversation.
I kind of alluded to this with my question earlier. Is this one of the biggest pushbacks? Because it feels like you have to put more mental energy into going slow. Like now you have to really think about the situation differently than just telling them to go do. It feels like you're taking a burden sometimes by doing that. And to do the fast thing, you're protecting yourself from having to absorb all this other information. I'm not even sure there's a question there, but
I think you're right. It comes back to this time thing, and then getting our reflexes out of the way, because we're not very good at listening, and really listening and putting ourselves in the shoe of the other person. That's really hard, because our brain goes into action mode and we say, hey, you should do this. I know a lot better. I know much better what you should do. And let me tell you that, that's where we kind of end up by default. And here we're trying to do the opposite. But what my discovery, of course, having done a few hundred hours to kind of become a coach and coaching people, of course, you have this on top of mind. So you kind of learn it, right? You learn the what and how questions. It becomes automatic. But the discovery working with leaders is that they don't lead, or just people who do not have coaching experience, they don't need a lot of time to kind of get it. You see it almost instantly in a couple of exercises. Like, oh, I see the difference. Then it's, of course, how able and willing are you to work against those natural reflexes.
I wanted to sort of end with this idea that leadership isn't, though, just about solving Debbie problems, right? There's a real energy and a positivity in having a galvanized team and force that's moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
This isn't about just conflict resolution.
No.
Leadership done correctly, I feel like it feels different. I feel like you can spot it a mile away with a team that's sort of emboldened to do stuff,
Absolutely. And that's why a lot what we talk about is, engagement is the word that, emerged quite some time ago now, but it's pretty fundamental, right? And it makes a huge difference to create that engagement. And engagement is there's a whole set of things that have to come into place. All of the things we have to talk about that kind of have to, work together for engagement to be right. Where are we going as an organization or as a team together? Are we doing it together? Am I playing a role in this? Am I appreciated for that role? To have the right skill sets to contribute was something I didn't talk about the team side, of course, but we need the right skill sets to be able to accomplish something. So all of those things play together to understand if we have that level of engagement and that real power that you talk about. And I think for the leader, the most important thing is to be, just kind of be natural about that, that I'm saying that, yeah, this is what it's about. And if we're not there, we should talk about it. I think that's essential.
Chris, any last questions before we talk about snowflakes, which is what I want to talk to Jakob about next?
Oh, no. I definitely want to talk about snowflakes.
Yeah, well, I know you meant uniqueness when you mentioned snowflakes before, but I'm in Ohio. Chris is in Connecticut. You're in Switzerland. We're
Yeah.
about to get a ton of snowflakes over the next like couple months. All right, Switzerland. I've been there. I've been there once. It was my
Yeah.
favorite country to visit,
Yeah.
Zermatt. So
Yeah.
I'm on top of this mountain. Not like I can see the Matterhorn to my left, and below me, okay, in Zermatt,
Yeah.
below me, there's a fireworks display, and I am looking down on the fireworks. That's how high I was in
You were
this really cool experience where I'm watching fireworks looking down. And it was the greatest, it was like the greatest night of my life. What is it like living in Switzerland? And can I please come over? Can I please come over for dinner or a snack or anything?
just, come over anytime. You'd be more than welcome. What it's like, well, you actually never kind of get used to seeing those mountains. I go up to mountains, probably, I don't know, dozens and dozens of times per year. I go skiing, I go hiking in summer, and I get
Yeah,
up there, and every time I look and I go, wow, this is so impressive.
it's
And there's
unbelievable.
something about, I lived in Colorado for quite a few years. So, and, there's a lot of spectacular mountains there, but there's something about the dramaticness, especially around this region, but several regions, also Austria, where you have these spectacular mountains that come out of nowhere. You just don't get used to it. You just kind
No,
of smile every time and go, wow, the power of nature. So I think that's what it's
that's
all
cool.
about.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've been on the stair stepper, but it's not the same as climbing climbing the Switzerland
It is not the
hills. Chris,
same
should we
thing.
go to Switzerland? I think he just gave me permission to
I think you just approved it.
spend
Mm-hmm.
hard-earned Dscoop money by travel expense form. No problem, right?
Yeah, fully funded.
We'll eat some Swiss cheese fondue. That's what we do.
What is Swiss cheese fondue? And describe it slowly because I have not had lunch yet.
So it's molten cheese. That's just molten cheese. You dip bread to it, and you end up having far too much cheese.
Good, good. Well, there are 3 upcoming webinars led by Jakob coming up in January of 2024. Jakob, tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, Darren, with great pleasure. Yeah, so these webinars are basically going to give you an introduction to some key subjects around leadership. First of all, what is leadership? So we'll start there and reflect upon what is effective leadership. What does that look like? We will then explore, how do I go from, strategy to execution effectively? What are some of the challenges in that process and how to address those? And we'll also think about in another webinar, high performance teams and how to create that environment for teams to truly perform in an organization. These are all appetizers to the full-fledged virtual live leadership development course that is going to be offered to Dscoop members as of February.
Well, Jakob, thank you very much for joining us for this episode of Unvarnished. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and talking to you about leadership management. We want to thank you very much for taking the time to do that with us.
Thank you so much to both of you. It's been a real pleasure. And look forward to learning more about Dscoop and engaging more about Dscoop in the near future.
Excellent.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.